Absorb but filter. That's a rare superpower. Fakes are the modern weapon that easily kills the sense of reality. Our program should become your key to understanding the true picture of events. Here is StopFake.
Watch this.
The British authoritative The Financial Times published an article entitled "NATO and EU Sound Alarm Over Risk of Ukraine Weapons Smuggling." The American CNN also spread this fake information. And the original source of fake information was Russian propagandist. It is how the aggressor country promotes disinformation campaign about the black market of weapons. Well, yes, Moscow knows everything about the black market because they regularly use its services. So, according to them, Ukraine has allegedly been selling Western weapons since the middle of 2022. In the latest news, propagandists also claim that the weapons that international partners gave to Ukraine ended up in the hands of Hamas.
Ukraine secretly sells weapons, but this country is not the only one involved here. There are also Bulgaria, Romania, and, first of all, Albania. Through these countries, weapons are sold all over the world.
However, US officials have not confirmed this data. Celeste Wallander, Assistant Secretary of Defense for International Security Affairs, claimed that the United States had found no evidence of arms embezzlement in Ukraine.
The U.S. government has not seen credible evidence of any diversion of U.S.-provided weapons outside of Ukraine. Instead, we see Ukraine's frontline units effectively employing security assistance every day on the battlefield.
Washington inspections of material and technical assistance also confirmed the absence of claims from the American side to the accounting of weapons in Ukraine. It was reported in the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine.
Artillery, ammunition, complex air defense systems, armored vehicles, everything is accounted in Ukraine. An automated system of accounting and passage of all weapons and military equipment through logistics has been implemented. With the help of partners, the Logfas and Caravo programs were introduced, which allow you to accompany military equipment to a military unit using a barcode and QR code.
Watch this.
The scandal in the top leadership of Ukraine is a topic that was widely discussed on the front page of respected publications. Andrew Kramer was one of the first to write about a possible split in Ukraine in an article for the New York Times. The author assumes that Zelensky was dissatisfied with the publication of Zaluzhny's article regarding changes in the leadership of the Special Operation Forces. He also claims that tensions between the president and the commanding general allegedly existed for more than a year, but did not erupt into public disputes. British The Telegraph wrote that the Ukrainian president denied tensions but showed rare public anger about the course of the counteroffensive and reprimanded Zaluzhny. A similar article also appeared in the Washington Post. The Russians claim that President Volodymyr Zelensky and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces Valery Zaluzhny have different views on the conduct of war, and that is why they allegedly want to remove the latter from his post.
The leadership of the Kiev regime has a different vision of the situation in the war. The split between Zelensky and Zaluzhny is obvious. Ukrainian intelligence, Ukrainian authorities, and the military all differ in their forecasts and plans. At the same time, both of them are asking for shells and money.
However, President Volodymyr Zelensky rejected remarks about the split at a press conference with the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen. The President emphasized that he and Zaluzhny have the same position on waging war, namely, to win victory over the aggressor, but to preserve as many lives of our soldiers as possible.
Everyone gets tired, all people, regardless of their status. It is not a stalemate. I emphasize once again, we have already talked about it. It is not some kind of nose. Russia controls the sky in offensive missions. This is understandable if we protect our military. We protect our boys and girls. When they control the skies, no one wants to abandon their people like Russia does, using them as mate.
The tactic of division is currently being used by Russia. It is stated in the office of the President of Ukraine. They refute the fake about the conflict between the head of state and the head of the commissar.
We have a common target: to win this war, of course. Today we have a constant dialogue and 24/7's work.
Watch this.
So enough talking about politics, let's talk about animal world. Such information always relaxes and brings more brightness into grey human everyday life. Although in this case probably the full relaxation will not happen to you. One day, information appeared in Europe about non-existent NATO Biolaboratories in Ukraine. Thus, the Russian propaganda media in Germany wrote that they had found a document confirming that the USA has been financing Ukrainian biolaboratories since 2015. Similar disinformation was also spread to Italian and Slovak audiences. The authors of the article claimed that in a secret laboratory in Kharkiv, supposedly under the control of the US specialists, they studied how bats transmit diseases to humans. And during the experiment, 20 soldiers allegedly died and another 200 were injured. It sounds very creepy, but it's not surprising because Russian propaganda has been spreading fakes for years about US secret laboratories, allegedly discovered in Ukraine, where they prepare combat geese and mosquitoes and develop biological weapons that affect a specific ethnic group, namely Russians.
The Americans planned to conduct work on pathogens of birds, bats and reptiles in Ukraine in 2022. With further transition to studying the possibility of them carrying African swine fever and anthrax in biological laboratories created and financed in Ukraine. Experiments were carried out with samples of bat coronavirus. The goal of these and other Pentagon-funded research was to create a mechanism for the hidden spread of deadly pathogens.
In Ukraine, the Russian fake about war geese and mosquitoes became a reason for jokes and memes. And after all, this delusion was refuted even in Russia itself.
This information is fake. Even Russian scientists themselves refuted this last year. Therefore, the next time you hear this, know that the Russian side continues to operate.
Russia convened the UN Security Council, accusing Ukraine and the United States of America of non-compliance with the Convention on the Prohibition of Biological Weapons. But countries' representatives did not take the Kremlin's absurd statements seriously.
Russian Federation concerns that biological weapons can be delivered by birds and bats and even mosquitoes. Russian Federation knows that public health laboratories routinely study migratory animal species to assess and counter animal-borne pathogens. Bear in mind that much like Russia, birds and bats don't tend to observe or respect sovereign borders.
The documents presented by the Russian Federation do not present any tangible evidence of violations of the convention. I wonder how those mosquitoes would be able to distinguish between Russians and Ukrainians.
The governments of various countries have refuted the disinformation narratives of the Kremlin regarding the development of biological weapons in so-called secret laboratories. However, the aggressor state continues to spread fakes about the fighting mosquitoes. And finally, let's discuss the weather and cows.
Watch this.
In 2008, Estonia introduced a tax on cow farts because the local cows are the main air polluters. And am I not a Baltic country, Lithuania thought, and decided to introduce a rain tax. No, this is not a break for a joke. This is another Russian fake. To be more specific, they faked news about Lithuania. Info about Estonia is actually a fact. The Bulgaria Post published an article about the introduction of the new tax. Pro-Russian resources actively spread fake information that the Lithuanian authorities are planning to introduce a tax on rain due to significant defense cost and the supply of weapons to Ukraine. It is argued that the Lithuanian government no longer knows where to look for additional resources to cover cost, so it is resorting to innovation.
The Lithuanian authorities no longer know where to look for additional resources, and are even forced to introduce a rain tax to cover rising costs. At the same time, teachers are on strike across the country, but instead of satisfying the demands of teachers through the new tax, The Lithuanian authorities will apparently maintain new German tank battalions.
In fact, some Lithuanian cities do have a so-called rain tax, but it was introduced back in the 90s. Residents of private houses pay for the discharge of rainwater into the sewer. According to the laws of Lithuania, rainwater and domestic sewage must be processed separately. It helps the sewage treatment plants to cope with the large amount of rainfall and has nothing to do with the war in Ukraine.
Watch this.
Don't believe lies, propaganda and manipulation. There are weapons, the counteroffensive continues, and the fighting mosquitoes do not bite their people. StopFake stands guard over information security. See you soon.